friends and took it from there. So thanks everyone for being here.
As you'll see, I've known Saibaba for 9 years. And I was really shocked that it happened. And putting together this talk, I decided that I should tell a story about who he is and how his politics developed in relationship to very important events that didn't fall from the sky. Some of you may already know some of this, but I think some of you haven't. So I'm going into the history in some detail. Saibaba was born into a rural family in Andhra Pradesh in 1967. Having little access to healthy living conditions, he contracted polio at the age of 5. He has lived and worked in a wheelchair since. The handout over there has a picture of him. However, this is not limited to Saibaba's political activism, becoming one of the most prominent opponents of the Indian government. Since the early 2000s, Saibaba has taught literature at the University of Delhi and at Ramlal Anand College in Delhi. Saibaba started his social activism in 1989. He joined the Radical Student Union in Andhra Pradesh, which mobilized hundreds of thousands of students in social and educational issues, including making a call of, quote, go to villages to students. The RSU was banned by the government in 1991, and a number of revolutionary student leaders were killed by the police and military during these years. A decade later, Saibaba started working with the nationwide anti-tireless organization, the All India People's Resistance Front. In 2005, the AIPRF merged with similar organizations to form the Revolutionary Democratic Front. Saibaba soon emerged as one of the leaders of the RDF and was elected Deputy General Secretary at a nationwide conference in 2012. The Federation of Revolutionary People's Organizations doing work among different strata of the peasants. Among the 92% of Indian workers who are unorganized, coal miners, women, Muslims and other religious minorities, youth, students, and cultural organizations in 13 out of India's 26 states. The RDF concentrates its work among the Dalits, who constitute 15% of the population and remain overwhelmingly illiterate and are forced to do menial jobs. The RDF has strong support among the Adivasis, the 100 million indigenous people concentrated in the forested areas of eastern and central India. They are the poorest of the poor. Contrary to Western views, India is a predominantly rural country. Only 30% of the population lives in urban and semi-urban areas. Altogether, 77% of India's population lives on less than 20 rupees, or $0.50 per day. Saibaba's view is that, quote, we can say that instead of having the largest democracy in the world, India has the largest population stricken by poverty, exploitation, and oppression. In many states, the RDF's members and leaders and spokespeople are arrested and incarcerated merely for their opposition to the oppressive policies of the central government of the states. The RDF's members are branded as having organizational links to the band CPI Maoists, just because the RDF also believes in a revolutionary transformation of Indian society. The RDF advocates a new democratic revolution, which is primarily aimed at comprador bureaucratic capitalism and the semi-feudal shackles that remain in the countryside. These forces have emerged out of 200 years of British colonial rule and continuing imperialist plunder, principally by the U.S. While the RDF focuses its work in sectoral revolutionary organizations working at the grassroots level, it also builds and participates in larger united fronts involving other democratic and anti-imperialist forces in India, in which Saibaba has played a key role. In 2005, the Indian government launched Saibaba, the self-proclaimed purification month. It was publicly aimed at the Maoist forces and their out-of-basic base of support, primarily in Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, and Orissa. This campaign was patterned after U.S. strategic handlers in South Vietnam. The ultimate objective of the purification month was to displace and clear away all resistance to the exploitation of trillions of dollars of bauxite, iron ore, and other minerals in these areas where the Adivasis have lived for centuries. In 2006, 644, quote, Maoist affected the villages in southern Chhattisgarh were razed and emptied. Hundreds of thousands of Adivasis were forced into prison-like resettlement camps or nearby forests. Under these conditions, the RDF, Himanshu Kumar, a Gandhian human rights activist, and Dr. Vinayak Sen, a prominent medical practitioner in Chhattisgarh, spoke out. The government trumped up charges against Dr. Sen that he was a high-ranking CPI Maoist convict. He was given a life sentence, which was eventually overturned by the Indian Supreme Court for insufficient evidence. At the same time, Maoist squads drove the forces of the Shao and Juden out of the villages that had purified and staged a daylight raid on an SR steel plant in order to underline their opposition to caste placement in the region. In August 2008, I arrived in India. I heard about the successful campaign to shut down Saibaba. My host was Professor Saibaba. From his small quarters on the campus of the University of Delhi, Saibaba made the arrangements for my 5-state trip from Mumbai by rail across India to the eastern states of Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, West Bengal, and Orissa, where some of the poorest people of India live. The objective of my trip was to interview and write a report about the farmers and Adivasis who were fighting against escalating efforts of profit-hungry multinational corporations and mining firms to sign hundreds of secret memoranda of understanding and seize vast areas of land with the help of the central government and states. This included the Communist Party of India Marxists in West Bengal, which advocated a program of capitalist economic development. Two of the sharpest points of conflict were in West Bengal. At Singur, Tata Motors was in the process of building a nano-car plant on 997 acres of fertile land. At Nandigram, Dow Chemical is trying to take over even larger amounts of land from 95,000 lower caste Hindu and Muslim farmers. While I was in West Bengal in the summer of 2008, the farmers at Singur and Rajasthan scored important victories and encouraged anti-displacement activists in other states who I later met. A longtime advisor to the Tata Group complained, which foreign company will want to come in when India's most respected group cannot set up India in the state. These defeats of the Samajudam, Tata Motors, and other anti-people forces alarmed the Indian government. In 2009, the Indian National Congress, led by Prime Minister Singh and Home Minister Chidambaram, launched Operation Green Hunt, in which it initially deployed over 100,000 paramilitary troops to take control of the Adivasi areas of eastern and central India. In the end of 2009, Professor Saibaba became a nationwide influential voice in opposition to Operation Green Hunt. In large part due to Saibaba's work, a number of joint fronts developed across India, including Gandhi's, NGOs, to protest against this large-scale military offensive. By 2012, Saibaba could report that the multifaceted protest campaign within India and at Indian embassies abroad had set up obstacles to its military campaign. It had forced the Indian government to go slow on its plans. During this period, Saibaba made visits to many of the Adivasi districts in Chhattisgarh that were under attack, and was carried to remote villages on the backs of the people. The government almost certainly initiated plans to arrest Saibaba and silence his voice after Green Hunt's initiation in 2009. When discussing the well-publicized Maoist resistance to Operation Green Hunt, Saibaba stated that, quote, "I can't represent Indian Maoists and speak for them. I can only tell you from what there is in their documents and what they speak of in the public domain." The speeches in Norway, Italy, and Sweden, 2012, reported on the operations of people's governments, Janatana Sarkars, led by the CPI Maoists in Chhattisgarh, as well as their self-reliant development project. Drawing on Maoist documents, Saibaba stated that women constitute 30% of its members, and that two Maoist-led Adivasi women's organizations have memberships of 50,000 and 100,000. According to the Union Home Ministry, the Maoists are active in 167 out of 600 districts, a little less than 1/3 of the country. In a speech in Italy in 2010, Saibaba pointed out that this new war was an extension of India's decades-long wars on the peoples of Kashmir and in the 7 states of the Northeast. Saibaba explained that Green Hunt has implemented the U.S. doctrine of, quote, low-intensity warfare, and the U.S. has supplied military advisors, training, weapons, and surveillance equipment, joined by its close Israeli ally. There's material about this on the table. In a 2012 interview in Viborg, Sweden, with Indian Solidarity, Saibaba described the similarities between Operation Green Hunt and how the native lands of the Americas were usurped and violently taken over by the European explorers and traders. In Saibaba's words, quote, "They planned and executed a systematic elimination of the tribes of the Indians who chose to resist genocide. In the course of this Red Act, the country called the U.S. was constructed on the dead bodies of the Red Indians. Saibaba also pointed out that during the European elimination of millions of indigenous people worldwide from the 16th to the 19th centuries, an international solidarity movement was absent or extremely weak. He then described the resistance against the U.S. military campaign in Vietnam and how it helped the Vietnamese people to gain strength and confidence. Similarly, Saibaba explained that, quote, an international campaign today will strengthen the resistance struggle of the people in India. Saibaba went on to stress that the Adivasi areas of central India are one of the greenest areas of the subcontinent. And that is in this green region that Operation Greenland is being conducted. In Saibaba, these areas are relatively untouched by capitalism and are, quote, very important for our survival as well as for the Earth's survival. Thus, quote, we must not see our national borders as barriers to our common fight. The question of the destruction of nature, natural resources, and the people of the world is concerned. And in his 2012 movie in Sweden, Saibaba stated that, quote, it is important for the working classes in the advanced capitalist countries to develop deep relations with the revolutionaries of the oppressed countries. Saibaba also made a broader international call. He said that, quote, there is an urgent need for close relations to be made among the struggles of three continents, Asia, Africa, and South America, to understand each other and share their experiences in order to build a strong anti-imperialist movement world over, as three continents have been exploited by the imperialists from the classical colonial era to the present-day imperialism, including the latest phase of liberalism, privatization, and globalism. In May 2014, the same month as the right-wing Hindu chauvinist Modi government took power, Saibaba was arrested in Delhi and taken to Nagpur Central Jail in Maharashtra, state in Western India. He was denied medical care for life-threatening pancreatitis, kidney stones, and high blood pressure. And Indian intelligence and police agencies spent 3 years concocting the case against Saibaba under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, a repressive law that originated under British rule. On March 7, 2017, Saibaba and 4 student and Adivasi activists were convicted by a hand-picked judge in Gadchiroli, Maharashtra, of being members of the CPI Maoists, with opposing industrial development in Gadchiroli, and with, quote, waging war against the state. The quote evidence came from 22 well-coached police officers in a park. Saibaba and 4 other activists received life sentences. The 6 received a 10-year sentence. The Committee for the Defense and Release of Dr. G.M. Saibaba in Delhi pointed out that the 827-page judgment failed to produce a single instance in which Saibaba and the other 5 committed or conspired to commit violence or provided logistical support to violence. Professor Harakaba, chairperson of the Defense Committee and a professor at Delhi University, stated that, quote, The function of a university is to critically assess the manner in which society lives. But this judgment strikes at the very core of this right to exchange ideas. The unsupported judgment and life sentence of Professor Saibaba puts all democratic values in Indian trial. According to Saibaba's counsel, Rebecca John, there is not a shred of evidence against him to prove his links with malice or his supposed plan to wage war against us. He has been convicted for his ideology. Dr. John drew a parallel between the trumped-up court cases and life sentences lodged against Dr. Benedict Sen and Chattisgarh and against Dr. Saibaba. She announced that an appeal to a higher court is being made. The judge refused to issue an order instructing the jail authorities to give adequate care to Saibaba. On July 24th, Saibaba's wife, Basanta Kumari, told the National Herald that Saibaba's jailers were not permitting him to take his medicine. According to Basanta, quote, he is inching towards death with every passing. She made an urgent appeal to the National Human Rights Commission. Recently, Saibaba was able to send birthday greetings to his wife from Dissent. Here is part of his emotional note. Dear Vasanta, I wish you had a happy birthday. The state has determined to separate us. It is even determined to destroy us. In 26 years of our married life, we have not looked forward to individual comforts and growth. I can only say that you should continue, hope, and work for the rights of the people in my absence. We dream for a better society. We hope for the end to the equalities, for human rights, freedom, civil and democratic rights of the oppressed people, Dalits, Adivasis, women, the disabled, and the minorities. We continue to uphold these values and work for the betterment of the marginalized sections of the people to bring real democracy to our society. Whatever I did in my life so far, I could do because you stood like a lighthouse, showering love all over me. With a lot of love, Sai, like people know him called. There was an immediate reaction to Saibaba's conviction in the Indian diaspora. The Indian Workers Association, Great Britain, issued a statement on March 10th, condemning the conviction of Professor Saibaba and the stifling of voices of democratic dissent. On March 12th, a group named Radical Desi in Vancouver, Canada, organized a rally of social justice activists to protest against Saibaba's persecution and presented a petition signed by 500 people to a South Asian legislature. In the U.S., a panel at the 2017 Left Forum in New York City was followed by the initiation of a petition to free Dr. Saibaba and oppose the suppression of dissent in India. Already more than 1,000 people in dozens of cities have signed, and it has been sent to the committee in Delhi to be used in its political and legal work. Much more is needed, especially with the attempt of the Indian government to enforce a death sentence on Saibaba through denying him medical care.
So thanks a lot, Dave, for those remarks. I have a few remarks about the efforts so far to spread the word about this issue in Boston and the United States more broadly, which kind of segue from what you just said. And after that, maybe that means to have some basic discussion about ways to carry on this work or any other questions about the relationship of this politics to us here and the relationship with the United States and India, this moment of history. there may be some remarks from another speaker about some of the issues of local politics too, competition. But well, we'll see. And so first of all, it's really an honor to have people travel to see this from near and far, and there's a lot of efforts to kind of put up flyers about this event and check different events, and it's really kind of a hard work at this stage because there's a lot of lack of awareness in the U.S. about the issue of Professor Saibaba, specifically, but more broadly about politics of South Asia and India. And but we have to start somewhere and make steps forward, and I think we're doing that. So thank you, everyone. Right now, as Dave mentioned, the petition has over 1,000 signatures, including many in the United States, and there's people who signed and commented, really moving remarks from Arizona, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Guam, Hawaii, Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Massachusetts, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Carolina, San Diego, Tennessee, and Texas. So quite a few states. There are voices that are in the United States that are kind of disparate right now, but are starting to come together around this, and I think that's quite notable. In addition, there's some notable people who have signed the petition so far. This is by no means an exhaustive list. And it includes Professor Chomsky from MIT, Professor Juice Butler from Berkeley, Professor Prabhat Chatterjee from Columbia, Professor Michael Clare from Ward Churchill, former Professor Ward Churchill. He's an old activist who actually lost his professorship, I believe, years back over his stance. And many progressive activists and intellectuals in India as well. It's quite a large list. Just so people up to date about what happened here, this effort was kind of, in a way, sparked or accelerated by Annabelle Berry's visit to Boston in June, where she gave a talk to a packed audience in Coffee Square. Probably about 1,000 people were there, about her most recent novel, The Mystery of Endless Happiness. And her talk, at least I thought, was pretty focused on the political situation in India and the need to unpack what this is really about beyond just the surface level. Oh, there's oppression in the world. She made remarks to the effect that we have to get out of these boxes and put it herself. People asked her, what type of writer are you? And she said that conversation ends up being like an NGO mission statement, like, I'm working with women's issues. I thought her talk was quite good, actually, but there weren't, at least in my perception, many of the audience who responded in kind comments, but there was one comment by a local activist here about Professor Saibaba's case, which seemed to at least be one of the things that broke through that that dynamic there. And she really opened up about the relationship of herself and Professor Saibaba, which she called a friend, and her own charge as a result of her essay, her article on Professor Prisoner POW, which got her charged with the UAPA as well, which recently was stayed, but by no means is she out of the woods, given the current situation in India. And even after that event itself, myself and some other people who were kind of plugged into this issue met other people in Boston who were also aware of Professor Saibaba's case, and we started to have weekly discussions with a group of people about this. From there, I just want to go on to some of the basic premises and the discussions that we've had in Boston about how is this relevant, or how should this be relevant, or can people see this as relevant to the situation here. One of the ideas is that Saibaba's case and politics in India can actually clarify in the United States, actually, specifically, that there's an interrelationship. March or last month, there was 40,000 people who showed up at Boston Commons in opposition to the far-right so-called free speech rally there. And a lot of people were quite inspired by that mass turnout. But then the question was, well, will they be there tomorrow, or are we actually going to systematically oppose the system of the U.S. state and its associated oppression and system of exploitation and white supremacy? We haven't had a rally since then, to say the least. And I think the real question is if that's going to be an ongoing effort. I think, at least, it's not a mechanical thing, because a lot of people are there one day, but they'll be there the next day. And I think the situation of Saibaba's case shows us the real basis to struggle with deeper issues and actually to struggle to overturn the situation. And Saibaba, as an individual, really showed a basis for not simply being content with a certain status as a gifted intellectual. As probably I mentioned, and people know about Saibaba, he really overcame great difficulties from a young age. His family had, from very early age, polio and physical challenges, but he became a very prominent thinker, and people saw him as very good in that respect. And he was a professor from early on, but he left his own province because he was seeking out other voices and other activism, and spent years organizing resistance against the as mentioned, defense operation. Green Hungary, before that, throughout the 90s, he was quite an active organizer and even was carried in the back to the Boston's to see their actual struggle and their actual fight. So even despite his wheelchair, he's not content. He's never been content to just stay in a different path. And to me, that's an inspiration. Even his dissertation itself and the academic space was on the class basis of English literature from India. That often people refer to as this is Indian literature, but actually what people see as the product of an independent state. Self-independent independent state is not self-independent, but there's a real tie to the system of the legacy of colonialism and ongoing class exploitation in India. So from there, I just want to talk about some of the discussions we had then about how else Saibaba is relevant. And there were some people bringing up the legal ramifications of the case to say, what does it mean to say that someone, because of their ideology, is to be imprisoned for the rest of their life? There's an article that we read about Justice Hugo Black in 1961, citing an English parliamentary verdict from 1779 that said, I see that the government are acting thus. Those whom they cannot prove to be guilty, they will punish for their suspicion. To support the system, we must have a swarm of spies and informers. They are the very pillars of such a system of government. And then he also said in that same year, the first banning of an association because it advocates hated ideas, whether that association be called a political party or not, makes a fateful moment in the history of a free country. Now, of course, that must make us ask, well, is the US a free country? Has it ever been free? And I think many of us are very skeptical about that claim itself. The US is built on slavery, of course, and continues to maintain the system of oppression and exploitation. But then again, when people open their eyes now because of new outrages, we should be conscious of that and try to work together, if possible, to expose a larger situation. And you mentioned Saibaba's reference to the anti-war movement against the Vietnamese War as an example of international solidarity itself. The basis for such a movement here that can be built actually in a principled way.
Keep going back.
About this. And I think that's a model that we could and should follow both here and elsewhere. So this can be a non-reactive type of campaign, proactive one possibly. And a related note is that one of the challenges of talking about politics in India is many people in the United States are not aware. So of course, people from South Asia or with experience there can be quite helpful in elucidating the situation. And at the same time, the issue is international. So it's not restricted just to people from with experience in South Asia and India. And I think a lot of connections have already been forged in small ways, as I mentioned, people signing petitions from different places. People really stepping out and exposing a larger situation. And maybe in a small way, we could try to do that here by some basic discussion and clearing up, or even bringing up disagreements to what's being presented. I think that's very much in line with Saibaba's, with his whole life, actually, his academic work, his political work and activism. And so thank you very much, Dave, for traveling and speaking with us here. And thanks everyone for coming. I hope we could teach you now with some basic back and forth. Maybe we can even make a small circle.
Let me just make two points. The petition is freed Dr. Saibaba and opposed the suppression of dissent. I think it's very important to put Saibaba in that context. This is a very repressive state against Kashmiris, Dalits, Adivasi, workers, peasants. 95% of the Indian people are not benefiting from this government. It's a very small strata within cities that benefits and are supported. So I think when it was great, there was people turned out around Gauri in our country. And there was publicity in the mainstream media. And there was a demonstration, right?
Right here in Harvard Square.
Yeah. I mean, and I think we've got to try to bring these struggles together. They'll strengthen each other. Unfortunately, some people are buying into this, the anti-malice stuff. And that they're claiming these guys that gave life sentences are all really members of the malice. They have no evidence. They're waging war. It's really ironic to say Saibaba was waging war from his wheelchair. And at the trial, they didn't come up with any weapons. So what does this mean? It just means if you're associated with it, and I think people should not go for that kind of propaganda, what's last. The other thing is, I take very seriously when his wife says, my husband is inching towards death. I think it would really help in that many cities in the U.S., there were people actually went to the consulates and saved the life of Professor Saibaba. Would that be, and what that means is courts have to give them bail and get medical care. I mean, the way I read it is, it's not, if he doesn't get out of prison, he's going to die. And the life sentence won't be done. So I think that if there's anything we can take action around, that can be done. And I have friends in other cities. I'm going to suggest they think about it.
Do you think that this is an issue that we as Americans can change, can bring about change? We're here sitting down having this discussion. You guys are trying to raise awareness about this issue. Do you think that our voice really can translate to his legal issues in a whole other country?
It's a process, and we're starting from there's not a great deal of knowledge.
Right.
So we have to, at the same time as we educate people, we have to say, look, we have to take some action. There's time. We don't have time.
Right.
For a 5-year campaign to win this freedom.
And what about the people? Are there people in India that are trying to raise awareness?
Well, I assume I don't have direct connections. I did read the statement by the lawyer. She's appealing, but I assume they're doing whatever they can. Of course, what they do in India will be decisive.
Right, and this just seems like a big part of it is the Indian legal system, or even the structure of the way that the people in power have set up their society to work. And how
But they are sensitive to international pressure. We know that.
okay.
Because they don't want, they keep putting out this line that India is the world's largest democracy. And something like this, we're really undermining. So I think if there were 10 demonstrations at Indian consulates and the Indian embassy in the US, or maybe I think the Indian government and maybe the Supreme Court would, this guy's going to die on this. And who's going to be responsible for his death?
I mean, but is this a country that does take responsibility? You know what I mean? These are, I feel like, important things that we should be taking into consideration, because we are talking about someone's life here. Someone is going to die on that, and there's no hope if there's going on.
Well, I think there's a lot of the government and the military, they want to kill him. And they're well on the way to doing it. But I think there are others that are a little more sensitive to international training. And because they want to maintain the myth of democracy and fairness. I don't know. I have nothing else. That's the best I can come up with.
Saibaba, in this, Dave mentioned Operation Green Hunt, where hundreds of thousands of paramilitary forces are sent to basically wage a genocidal war against the Adivasis in India, to kick them off their land so these multinationals can take that land and pull the minerals out of it, engage in environmental degradation, and make lots of profits for them and pay off local Indian officials too. Saibaba's activism against that, opposing that, raising awareness of it on the international scale, was instrumental to a number of international investors pulling out of projects there. And also, the Indian government had to change the form of Operation Green Hunt. It's still ongoing in different forms now. Everybody calls it Operation No Name. But so they have been in the past aware of the threats caused by international pressure. So I think as a basis, I think that the key thing is people coming together and seeing the basis to stand up for this. It is a big thing to go against. It is a very brutally oppressive situation in India related to oppression here, and it can feel like, what can we really do as a few people coming together? But I think it's essential for us to take a stand. We might make mistakes along the way, but we can learn from them. Saibaba, he's a very important individual, but also the reason he's targeted is not just because of him as an individual, because of him taking a stand with the struggles of the oppressed peoples in India. So more broadly, Saibaba's struggle in Saibaba's unjust imprisonment and basically effective death sentence they've given him can be a way to raise awareness and build support for the people's struggles in India here. And hopefully also help us think of creative ways to apply those lessons in our own struggles.
I want to just give an example of this too, of what is possible by doing this. And by giving an example of one of the discussions that we had in the efforts to raise awareness of this issue in Boston, negative example actually, maybe positive by what we learned from it. In talking about the anti-displacement struggles in the Adivasi areas, one of the people who at first said that they would play a very active role said, well, every high school kid in India knows all about that stuff and knows that it's Maoist-led. And one shouldn't have to have a Maoist analysis of the state to be involved in positive work, which was quite a way to negate it, because actually the struggles in Adivasi areas are quite complex and multifaceted. And yes, there are Maoists there, but there are a lot of other forces too, and a lot of people which are generally under tremendous oppression, and actually doing quite inspiring things to resist that and create real democratic alternatives. And people are told that this is simply a banned ideology that's responsible for organization. But then by doing that, they negate the actual people involved there. And not just the issues in the encounter killings, which people really are just murdered for often no reason at all, and all malice, but really so many other people who have been displaced by the corporations who are desperately for the natural resources in areas, by a state which is just sees its role to facilitate this sort of speculative investment in the country as its way to become theoretically a global superpower, in reality currently by these aims in the region. But all these stories need to be unpacked. And yes, there is contradictions in it. There's contradictions in Saibaba's case too. And like you said, what can we do in this case? Is the dominant role in India? Well, yes, most likely. But that doesn't mean that we don't struggle forward and really listen to what's going on, listen to what Saibaba said, and tell others about it. Because we need to support people who are doing inspiring things and to follow their example.
I think one of the suggestions that David made is good, to have some kind of manifestation on the Indian conflict. And because, like if we organize in New York, Chicago, Houston, then in San Francisco, and then also with something on social media, like if we could get a 5-minute interview with Chomsky, not more than 5-6 minutes, put it on social media, that will have a big impact. And these things do impact. Like if we were organized enough, and this UN General Assembly is opened up, if we had a demonstration there, that would have had a lot of impact.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, as you said, when it opened up, so there are all these opportunities as time passes.
Yeah.
And of course, we have missed certainly.
All the other thing which we found very effective is that you just have people phone in to the district magistrate or the judge. That I'm so calling from US and we are like when Bhopal happened, we organized around 50,000 people. That was another effect, because we still have this colonial mentality, like they don't listen to anybody in India, but somebody calling from outside.
Yeah, exactly. They're sensitive.
So we should use that. And especially if you talk about, hey, I'm a white guy calling from US.
To continue on that, it's important to say outright that by doing such things does not mean by any means that one condones the colonial mentality. But there is
a fact.
But then at the same time, there is this colonial reality there. There is a real state in India, just like there's a real state here. And there is ways to apply pressure and change without completely overthrowing that system too. So doing so does not mean that we adhere to its logic either. We're actually not adhering to it.
Organize a couple of people to go on a fact-finding mission there. Some students, summer or winter holidays, they go to there, talk to people, make some videos, and post them online.
What we did, they kicked me out.
No, but if you find, especially the younger people talk to younger students,
Yeah.
like the way things are working in India, like they just charge anybody for sedition, and treason. Like there was a whole village, 3,000 people who were opposing building of a nuclear plant near their village. So they charged the whole village for sedition. In one university there were students agitating against a hike in their fees. They charged 60 of those students for sedition. So,
It's called throwing out of net.
Yeah.
Fishing.
Yeah.
See what
And if we have some connection with the lawyers here, or lawyers can write to the lawyers here there. So all of these things help.
And it's basically so that we can't be you, but there's an expression that you can, behind me, there's others.
Yeah, so we have to look at the connection.
That's a great idea. You know, it has to be done very, very quickly, and people they don't know about.
Yeah.
Because they have a habit of taking away leases.
Yeah.
David Barsamian,
Oh, yeah, he was.
he lost his, and John Myrdal
Yeah.
in Sweden.
Yeah.
John Myrdal, he's in his 80s. He walked into the Dallas Gorilla Zone and wrote a book called Red Star Over China. Over India. It was patterned, right, on Red Star Over China by Edward Snell. But he was in his mid-80s. And he's still going strong. And people he works with have been circulating the petition. Got some signatures from Sweden. But yeah,
So we have to think of creative ways of
other
doing
people
this, leveraging our strength.
that would be great, to get someone in there and to take some interviews and,
Oh, yeah.
you know.
And also somebody can actually introduce Saibaba. It's not difficult to get through the day. And the people on the ground, they are quite organized. So they can,
Maybe, it's probably a maximum security.
huh?
It's probably a maximum security.
Oh, yeah, but Indian maximum security.
Is that the same?
No, because the thing is, especially people who study here from Indian background,
Yeah,
they are the people who have connections here.
yeah.
So they can, if we mobilize them, especially students who come here.
We'll have to put our heads together.
Yeah. We can, even the most maximum prison they can get. Because they have relatives, friends who are officials.
Yeah.
I think there's a spirit too of, we have to try things even if we don't know exactly if
Yeah.
work or not. Even this small event that we put together, we tried many avenues in different ways, and including a few of us tried to do a lot of flyering the last few days. And I know a few people in the audience saw the flyers, and I helped out in that. I'm surprised how few other flyers there are on even campuses right now about related issues.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not, from my perception, the most dynamic situation right now in terms of political mobilization or discussion. And there are a lot of academic-sponsored talks.
For example, Shaila Rashid is coming here. She's one of the young student leaders in India.
I heard about that, yes.
So she's speaking at Harvard on the 20th of October. And you should just interview her about Saibaba. A 5-minute interview and put it on the web. And she's a very dynamic speaker.
Who's this?
Shaila Rashid.
And it's still meeting, right?
Yeah. JNU. She used to vice president of JNU. And I think she was one of the 4 people who was charged with sedition.
Yeah, one of you got myself.
Huh?
One got life from JNU.
No, I don't think the case is yet even moved.
Maybe not.
They haven't even framed the charges yet.
One of them.
See, these cases go on for 20 years.
I'm curious if there are any more questions too, of differences with or questions about the fact-finding trip that David brought up, or the relationship to the politics here. Maybe that could be also a way that we can flesh out these issues a bit. For instance, JNU has very inspiring student mobilization right now, which on one level by saying interviewing Rashad, when she comes here, it's for on behalf of the campaign for Saibaba, but also we learn here
Exactly.
about what is happening there and learn from, and we're not worlds away from India actually, that the ways to cut through the current holding patterns of resistance and opposition can be shared actually. And people need to be open to that stuff.
We are going to organize an interaction with her on 18th of October. Place. So you can come and talk to her. And she's going to be here for a week.
You know where she's been?
Every year.
I was wondering if you could speak about a bit about the, because I know that it's read some stuff that Saibaba was writing, was talking about the struggle against the patriarchal system in India, and patriarchy is the world over, but it's different in different places, and the importance of the struggles, and what we can learn from the views. Maybe from the fact-finding trip, but other stuff as well.
You mentioned about the percentage.
Well, when I visited Chattisgarh, 2008.
2008? Yeah, that was a high operation.
2008, I was given a copy of the report by Committee Against Violence Against Women. And there was a fact-finding delegation from all over India and women about the atrocities that the paramilitaries were committing against women. Rape, taking the livelihood away. They were making some important issue about. When the government sends 100,000 paramilitaries to establish war. This is what it means to establish law and order for women. They get the worst treatment. And there was a very, I got some information about the Adivasi women's groups that have organized have taken, really, what I found is that on all these struggles, women were really at the forefront, and a lot of it is because they're so close to the man. If they lose the man, they lose everything. I didn't get a deep background in how patriarchy exists, but really what I learned is that when we're transforming those relations.
Actually, in rural area, it's still matriarchal society, tribal area, and northeast. So they're trying to make it patriarchal. But mostly very matriarchal.
Well, that's why you have women's.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, those transformations happening.
Yeah.
And, in the, northern, western, you have much stronger patriarchal.
Oh, yeah.
You have dowry killings, you have, killings
honor killings
for not marrying the correct person. Those things I sort of read about and the press, but I didn't visit those areas.
Mm-hmm.
In Laos, they had a woman who was for the Maoists on patriarchy and balance. And she wrote prolifically, but unfortunately at the age of 50, she contracted malaria while she was in Pascal. And it's, you live in the jungles, you live in life. But she left behind a lot of very good things, and I was given those papers. So they do have
I think that is one of the weak points of the Maoist movement in India. They haven't been able to build a democratic front in the cities. And that has been the weakness in '67.
Yeah.
Because in the countryside, they had huge support. But in the cities, they were not able to mobilize on democratic demand. So that is still a weak link. and they have not been able to solve that problem.
Well, it's, whenever you support the weaknesses, it's also very dangerous. And Saibaba was really the leading, someone who's supported now, working openly in the cities. Felt they had to shut it down. So they're trying to send a message to like students or professors at Delhi or JNU. You can't do this work in the cities. And they control all the police and agents of oppression. In the countryside, the Maoists have more protection.
And the state is what weaker in countryside.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in a lot of ways they talk about their revolution similar to China. And that was the way things developed. So I don't think they think they're going to get just as strong in the cities, but they want to keep. They want to build the United States. And that's why Saibaba had to be jailed and convicted.
So there's, I think, a committee in India that is working on for Saibaba.
Yeah.
Are you directly connected with them? Because what will be good if they can get a recording out of the prison from Saibaba, even if it's 5-6 minute recording.
Okay.
This should not be that difficult to get.
I hope you're right.
No. I know. We've been through in and out in Indian prisons.
Okay.
Like one time we had a student leader. We had all India warrants of arrest against him. He was underground.
Okay.
But because some people had connections, we just put him in President of India's house. So he was there for 2 years. Nobody bothered.
Opening, so you may not imagine. The petition that has over 1,000 signatures, it stated that those signatures will be sent to the Committee for the Religious Defense of Professor Saibaba. So there is that one. But it's a good idea. So I wanted to, I'll find out.
Yeah, because I think these are things that really become very effective.
There's one comment I wanted to speak about too, about the idea that there actually are some free capitalist social relations in the countryside, and the type of patriarchy that we take for granted in our current system is not the same actually in those areas. And that story itself contradicts the dominant message we're bombarded with in the States that says that patriarchy is a third world thing. That, that the rapes in India are just simply people need to be schooled by these more civilized people. Nicholas Kristof writes about this type of nonsense on and on. There are huge NGOs which pump out this line, and it's quite the opposite actually. A lot of the violence and instability in society is because of the mass displacement away outside the countryside, the attacks on people in vicious ways. It's something that does need to be really exposed. So talking about the lack of activism in some campuses in our area too, these issues really do connect and need to be fleshed out.
And the other thing is, like, especially in countryside, state really doesn't have legitimacy. Like if you look at the attitude of the countryside in India toward the policeman, and attitude of, let's say, rural people here toward the policeman, it's very different. Like here, people think policeman is their friend. Like instinctive. In India, I say, don't call police, that will be trouble, no matter what happens. The state doesn't have that kind of legitimacy.
There's a relationship to even the way that agricultural economies function, that there is a degree of self-reproduction based on the resources, which the type of political economy in the West really has repercussions for how we see the state.
Yeah.
And one's actually in own existence is very trapped inside that whole cycle of relations too. At the same time, there are more people in the United States who are outside of the productive economy too. There's questions about what is the relationship to the state forces that need to be understood, and openings need to be grasped too. There's people saying that no, the police are not our friends.
Right. I definitely think that it's something that we as an organization, with this mission that you guys have, should flesh out more on at home, what are we doing here? Because it's, you know, in India, like you said, international pressure is something that they don't take lightly. And they can always look back at us as the US, and we, you know, we're a superpower, we're one of the biggest global people out there, like, connecting globally. I think we should be, this room here, what you're discussing, you should be fleshing out how we're dealing with what's happening at home, you know. A lot of what we're talking about here, a lot of what Saibaba is doing in India, we have those same issues here. You know, we have police brutality, something that has come to rise, you know, and then from the Black Lives Matter campaign, All Lives Matter campaign has come out. But as a person that strongly supports the Black Lives Matter campaign, I can't say that all lives matter, because Black lives don't matter in this country, you know? And so how are we dealing with those things? How are we bringing together our people here to really affect change on our land? And then how are we taking that change internationally? You know, one of the biggest, I think, disconnect with the US and going abroad is that in the US, the Constitution is so important to us. I'm a recent citizen, and I wasn't born in this country, and the Constitution really means a lot to me as someone that is now an American, and now these values are something that I hold dearly to me. How are we translating our constitutional rights abroad? Do we, like, you know, most of our corporations go abroad, most of our organizations go abroad, and we completely negate our rights, the rights that we have. We don't give that right, we don't give that respect to other countries. And I think that's one of the biggest disconnect when we go abroad, and we're like, okay, we're here to help. You know, and I think this is something that we need to talk more about in order to better plan our mission to succeed, to do all of the things that you guys do want to do in helping this mission.
I think she's making a very important point, because the model that Indian state is also using the same model. So we are sitting on stolen land.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And genocide and slavery
Yes.
is the basis on which this constitution was built.
Yes. Which our economy was built. We're a superpower based on.
And that is exactly the model that is being pushed in Chhattisgarh, in Jharkhand, basically genocide of the Indians. You know, people that, and you know, like the Supreme Court judgment of India, we called it resources. Like, if you don't have resources, you are actually lucky.
Yeah.
If you have resources, that means you're going to be exterminated. So we ourselves need to understand that it's the same model. And I think the other point she makes, I think, very well, that in terms of connect these struggles here and struggles there. Because, see, I think there was a slogan that emerged in early 2000s from the social forums: one humanity, one struggle. That's really, really very important conception to keep in mind, that at the end of the day, no matter where we are, our struggle is one.
And I think there's so many, we tend to disconnect from from people. We tend to, everything is separate. We look at things from a very separate issues, everything's separate, you know. His issues are different from mine, your issues are different from mine, and so let's talk about them separately. I think that it just doesn't work that way. You know, we're connected. We're trying to be connected as people that live on this globe, you know, global connections, businesses, where treaties, they're all coming about. We've been around for so long, but really, not really. We're losing sight of humanity.
There's an expression of someone else in the world is not freedom, I'm not free.
Yeah.
There's just a brief historical example I should know more about, but that the Black Panthers in the United States apparently really inspired the Black Panthers in India, and so there's a real tie between the traditional struggles here and in India too, that we need to really flesh out and be aware of. Even going forward, those links are quite real and they have real potential.
Not to mention, we've seen in this country with Standing Rock, the largest indigenous gathering struggle since the Battle of Little Bighorn. It's quite significant. but largely people in the US are unaware of the struggles of indigenous people in India. So they're not the same thing. The situation most, like I think 70% of indigenous people in the US live in cities. It's different in a lot of ways, but there also are important similarities and lessons to be learned. Similarly, there's the very oppressive caste system in India, which has a certain similarity, not the same, but a certain similarity to the struggle for the liberation of Dalits, formerly referred to as untouchables, does have a certain similarity to the Black liberation struggle here. There's also lots of different oppressed nationalities in India, especially in the Seven Sisters in the Northeast. So there's a lot of these different struggles I think we can learn a lot from and relate to our situation. Of course, appreciating the differences too. And then, as you were saying, like really practicing a form of internationalism, seeing that there are borders that divide us, but it doesn't mean we don't have a shared struggle for the liberation of all of humanity.
So, what's our next step?
To the consulate.
Yeah, I
Oh, is that a bus right aside?
like we should be able to find people in all these places, and if you look out, and this consulate, they're very sensitive.
There's been, I think, I would say, a breach in the law that lots of people have been contacted about some of these first steps here, including many different student groups throughout Boston, including many different student unions, many different backgrounds. And so the opportunity now to continue that conversation, to explore the similarities is now, we have that ability to we'll follow up. And so as much as possible, people here want to stay in touch about those discussions. That's very important, as well as people who might be tuning in, and hear the audio for this as well. We've seen it. Different places are sending a petition. We'll try to, in appropriate ways, share some of these kind of connections and really realize these possibilities as we go.
The other event that is coming up is in University of Wisconsin. It's the annual meeting of South Asian Studies departments all across the US. So we have thousands of academics leading in South Asia to come there. So if we can have some presence there in the form of a petition or even have a presentation, and if we can get a resolution out of that group there.
Where?
It's in Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin Medicine.
Yeah. When is it?
It's usually in October or early November. If you Google, you'll find out what the dates are.
It might be worth even considering for those of us here in Boston, Cambridge, try to meet up like next weekend, week from today or something, if people are free in the afternoon. We could try to do something like that, carry things forward and kind of plan next steps from there.
Yeah.
Invite others too, this makes sense.
Absolutely.
And there's quite a big Andhra community here, so also you'll find connection in the Andhra community here, and people sympathetic, and the community here then has connections all across the US.
Is there a specific community in Boston which has a good phone book?
Yeah, there's Telugu Association. You should know, Telugu Association in Boston.
There's one in Lowell.
Huh?
There's one in Lowell. Lowell, Massachusetts.
No, there's a Greater Boston Association. So, I will try to find out. I'll give you an email of Venkat. And there's a group of Dalit activists in the city here. And several of them are from Andhra. And if you connect with them, they have Brenda, a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, we went to an event. There's something about myself.
Yeah, so if you connect with them, that will be.
So do you guys have, is there any way that we can contact you?
Yeah, did you sign Yeah, so
What's your name?
Mira?
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop the live stream now.
Thank you.
So tuned in, we're going to be ending the live stream now.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have to go outside.